The house was too quiet for a Thursday. No TV, no humming from the washer, no clinking of pans in the sink. Elias Grant stepped into the kitchen with grease still under his nails and sweat staining the collar of his work shirt. That morning, he'd spent 4 hours wedged inside a busted heat exchanger at the mill. A stubborn old furnace, like everything else built before the world, forgot how to make things that last. He wasn't expecting a love note, but he sure as hell wasn't expecting legal documents either. There, on the table, neatly stacked, fresh from a printer, were a set of notarized transfer papers. The title to their home, signed, dated, filed, from his name to Caleb Myers, her brother. He stared at the signature in blue ink, and a strange silence filled his chest. Monica had signed it for him. Same curl on the G, same loop on the E. She'd practiced, no doubt, maybe even smiled while she forged it. The back of his neck got hot. Elias didn't shout, didn't throw things. He just stood there, running his callous thumb over the edge of the paper, slowly, like testing the sharpness of a blade. 15 minutes later, she came through the door all smiles and short breaths. Scrubs, undone ponytail, hospital badge tilted like she'd been rushing. She smelled like pine soap and someone else's cologne. "Hey babe, you're home early," she said, walking past him like he was a lamp. She opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and only then did she glance back. "You okay?" Elias didn't answer. He was staring at the documents again. "Oh, that," she said, laughing lightly, waving a hand like she was brushing away a fly. "It's for tax reasons. Caleb's starting a Shell LLC thing. Trust me, it's harmless. My accountant friend, Kevin, said it's smart." That name sat heavy in the room. Kevin. The one she started talking about 3 months ago. Oh, Kevin said this. Kevin saved a patient's life. Kevin ran a marathon for cancer. That's when Elias knew. It wasn't cologne, or the fake smile, or the papers. It was the pattern. He worked with machines for 30 years. Boilers didn't just burst without warning, but they always leaked first. A hiss, a drip, a crack in the seal. This was the first leak. He picked up the papers, folded them once, and slid them into the inside pocket of his work coat. "I'll be out in the garage," he said, his voice flat, even. Monica didn't stop him, just went back to scrolling on her phone, sipping water like her throat was dry from something other than the AC. Out in the garage, Elias sat on his tool bench, staring at a rusted pressure gauge he hadn't touched in years. There was a hum in his ears. Not noise, just pressure building. He wasn't going to ask questions. He sure as hell wasn't going to cry. He reached for his old spiral notebook, flipped past sketches of pipe layouts and job estimates, and started writing names. Monica, Caleb, Kevin, then underlined one word 3 times. Why? At 10:23 p.m. he got a text. "Stuck at the ER. Might be late. Don't wait up." He read it twice. That was the 3rd late night this week. She was predictable in her patterns, lazy, really. Elias walked back inside, straight into the laundry room, opened the hamper and found her scrubs from the night before. He brought the fabric to his nose. There it was again. Cologne. Not the kind sold at a drugstore. The kind a man wore when he didn't have to worry about punching a clock. Elias stood still for a long time, eyes fixed on the dryer's silent drum. Then he whispered to no one, "You just pulled the wrong valve, Monica." By 6:15 the next morning, Elias was already on the floor of the converted mill, wrench in one hand, knee braced against a steel beam. The old boiler system had started spitting steam through a pinhole weld, and they were behind schedule on the rehab contract. If he didn't fix it by noon, city inspectors would be breathing down their necks. He liked the heat, the sweat, the pressure. It was predictable, unlike people. "You gonna snap that pipe off just by looking at it?" came a voice behind him. Elias didn't need to turn. "Morning, Theo." Theo Ramirez, built like a beer truck and just as loud. 22 years they'd worked side by side. If anyone noticed when Elias started carrying himself a little tighter, jaw clenched more than usual, it was Theo. "You haven't said 5 words since Tuesday," Theo said. lighting a cigarette as he leaned on the railing above. Something's off. Wife trouble. Elias kept turning the wrench slowly. Have you ever seen a pressure valve that looked fine one day, then blew the whole damn system the next? Theo exhaled smoke through his nose. Yeah, that's how you lose a hand. Or a house. Elias nodded once. I think Monica's trying to do both. That quoted Theo. He climbed down, boots heavy on the metal stairs. She cheated. Elias hesitated. Something worse. I found papers. She forged my name. Transferred the house to her brother. Theo cursed under his breath. Jesus. And there's a guy, Kevin. Some hospital exec she's been seeing on the side. I haven't got proof yet, but I can smell it. Theo studied him. You need to lawyer up, man. You need to hit first. Women like that, they don't just leave. They gut you, make you thank him for it, then feed what's left to the next guy in line. I'm not thanking anybody, Elias said coldly. I'm watching. Theo stepped closer, voice low. Then keep watching, but don't wait too long. When a system fails, it doesn't warn you twice. Before Elias could answer, the boiler screamed. Not a hiss, a blast. The pipe he'd been tightening split open like a ruptured artery, metal shrapnel slicing through the air. Theo shoved Elias back just in time, but the force still flung him hard into the support beam. Lights went out. Heat roared. Then darkness. He came to the hospital, the smell of iodine and scorched metal in his nose. His ribs screamed every time he breathed. He tried to sit up but couldn't. The ceiling looked like the one in Monica's hospital, soft tiles, dim light. For a split second, he wondered if she was there. Instead, it was Theo's face that came into view, a fresh cut stitched across his temple. You're lucky, man. That valve went off like a pipe bomb. If I hadn't yanked you. What happened? Elias croaked. Theo looked around the room. Boiler systems shot. They called the fire marshal. Said it looks like the pressure release valve was tampered with. Weld marks didn't match. Someone rigged it. Elias blinked. You sure? Theo nodded slowly. I know sabotage when I see it. And I know men like you. You don't make mistakes. A long silence settled between them. Then Elias whispered, more to himself than anyone else. She's trying to finish what she started. Theo leaned in, voice like gravel. Then you finish it first. Elias stared at the 4 in his arm, the heart monitor beeping steady beside him, and made a quiet promise. They came for his life. They didn't get it. Next time he was coming for theirs, and he wouldn't miss. Monica was all syrup and concern when she brought him home from the hospital. Oh my God, Eli, you have to take it easy, she gushed, guiding him into the recliner like a nurse at a charity home. Do you need your meds? Water? Something to eat? He just grunted, stiff in his ribs but sharper in the mind than he'd been in years. Every smile she gave him now felt choreographed, every touch measured. She kept glancing at her phone when she thought he wasn't looking, thumbs moving fast. He played along. You were lucky, she said, kneeling in front of him, placing her hand on his thigh. I don't know what I would have done if you. He caught her wrist mid-sentence, gently but firmly. You didn't come to the hospital. Her face twitched for half a second, just long enough for him to catch it. I was at work, she replied quickly. I didn't even know until Theo called. She stopped herself, then tilted her head, voice softer. I didn't think you'd want to see me. That part was true, but that wasn't the point. By evening, she'd gone upstairs to shower. Elias waited until the water turned on, then limped to the basement. He'd already pulled the spare key from under the toolbox, popped the padlock on his old electrical cabinet, and started pulling gear from the back. Meters, testers, an old stud finder he hadn't used since the garage edition. He wasn't looking for wires. He was looking for watchers. The idea had hit him in the hospital. The boiler had been tampered with, sabotage, but the only people who knew where he worked, when he'd be alone, and how to get into the pressure system were the ones closest to him. And Monica wasn't exactly an industrial systems expert, but she'd been learning, watching. He moved through the basement with surgical precision, pressing the stud finder along every beam, every socket, every breaker box. Then a buzz. One outlet didn't register like the others. A foot off the floor. Clean faceplate. Too new. He pulled a screwdriver from his belt and popped it open. What he found made his pulse slow and cold. A tiny pinhole lens tucked behind the top slot. A wireless transmitter inside. Hidden in a fake outlet. Camera. Someone had been watching him work. Tracking his schedule. Learning his timing. His first instinct was rage. He could feel it boiling under his skin. But years of working under pressure had trained him to lock that rage into place. Channel it. He set the outlet on the bench, examined the parts, noted the make and frequency band. It wasn't amateur gear. It was something a security firm would use. Or someone with deep pockets and something to hide. Kevin. Monica wouldn't know where to buy this kind of surveillance. But someone like Kevin? A hospital executive with connections, money, access to off-the-books gear? He fit. Elias closed his eyes, breathing through the fire behind his ribs. Every inch of his body screamed betrayal. They weren't just sleeping together. They weren't just stealing from him. They were studying him like prey. He moved back upstairs just as Monica emerged from the shower. Hair wet, robe cinched tight. She smiled like she still owned the place. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head. Elias smiled back. "Yeah, just resting. You were right. I've been pushing too hard." She came over and kissed his forehead. He didn't move. Later that night, when she finally fell asleep, Elias sat alone in the garage, the camera guts spread out before him, his notebook open. He added a fourth name under Monica, Caleb, and Kevin. Himself, because now the game has changed. They had tried to kill him, and Elias Grant had just started keeping score. Elias knew one thing: revenge wasn't rage. It was architecture. You didn't throw bricks, you laid them one by one with purpose. Pressure systems only burst when the pressure had nowhere else to go. He would have a release valve. He just wouldn't be the one pulling it. By the following week, he'd laid the foundation for his counterstrike. Quiet, methodical, no sudden movements. First, he stopped using his phone. Left it powered off in the drawer like a rusted tool he didn't trust anymore. Bought a prepaid burner at a gas station 2 towns over. No ID, no trace. Next, he rented a second-hand Dodge Ram under the name Samuel Harlan. Using fake documents Theo's cousin helped fabricate. Nothing fancy, just clean, unremarkable, and anonymous. But the real work began when he found the old condemned boiler room behind Mill Building C. It had been shut down since the company went under. Sealed, forgotten, and hot as hell in the summer. Perfect. He broke in through the side door with Theo's old mill key and got to work. Stripped the broken panels. Cleared the moldy furniture. Rewired 2 outlets to run off a salvage generator. Hauled in a folding table, a portable fan, a military-grade lockbox, and one of Theo's spare tool chests. His base was built in 3 days. The first thing he mounted to the wall, a corkboard. On it, 3 pictures: Monica, Caleb, Kevin. Below each, a list. Monica, forged signature. Changed life insurance beneficiary. Pattern of late nights. Caleb, received house deed. LLC for tax reasons. Money laundering. Kevin Dorsey, hospital exec. Wealthy, connected. Possible surveillance gear. Possible mastermind. Each detail got a pin. Each lie a thread. Then came the digital trail. Elias bought a laptop through a shady pawnshop and ran a fresh OS install. He knew just enough to be dangerous, and Theo helped with the rest. They scraped Monica's phone backup off the cloud, texts, photos, call logs. That's when it stopped being theory. There were selfies, a hotel reservation in Kevin's name, voice messages from Monica, whispering late at night, calling Kevin my angel. One audio clip made Elias grip the desk until the wood creaked. He's so dumb, Kev. He still fixes broken pipes like it matters. I can't wait until everything is signed and over with. Everything's signed. His blood went still. That meant more than the house. It meant policies, power of attorney, life insurance. He opened the manila envelope he'd lifted from her office drawer 2 nights ago, slipped on a glove, and unfolded the form. New beneficiary, Kevin Dorsey. Signed, Monica Grant. Dated 2 days before the boiler explosion. Elias sat back slowly in his chair, letting the air sit in his lungs until it hurt. He had given her 20 years. 2 decades of winter mornings, oil changes, family cookouts, and nights he stayed late at the mill so the kids could have camp money. And her way of saying thank you was trying to cash him out. Not just betray him, not just cheat, kill. But Elias Grant didn't die easily. That night, from his new base under the mill, he began phase 1. He hacked into Kevin's hospital account using info Theo's cousin had pulled from an old patient file. Once inside, Elias downloaded confidential records, insurance reimbursements, bonus structures, internal memos. Enough to make someone nervous. He learned Kevin wasn't just some hospital suit. He was greedy, manipulative, and he'd left a trail of fraud wider than Interstate 90. Exactly where Elias planned to strike first. But before revenge, he needed surveillance. He installed motion-activated cams near the front door, driveway, and garage. Tiny, black units disguised as floodlight sensors. Wired them to a local hard drive in the attic. Monica wouldn't know the difference. Within 48 hours, he had footage of Kevin pulling into his driveway, walking into his house, letting himself in with a copy of the key. That's when Elias saw it. Monica kissing Kevin in his kitchen, pouring him a drink, laughing, in his house. And just like that, Elias didn't feel pain anymore. He felt clarity. You don't beg snakes to stop biting. You burn the nest. And tomorrow he'd start with the man who thought he owned his home, his wife, and his life. Kevin Dorsey wasn't the kind of man you could punch and expect results. Men like him didn't bleed in public, they bled in profit loss and scandal headlines. Elias wasn't interested in bruises. He wanted to collapse. And that meant hitting the one thing Kevin truly cared about, his image. The plan came together in the boiler room. Elias stood over the corkboard, eyes locked on Kevin's smug photo, remembering the smug way he poured himself a drink in Elias's kitchen. His voice, oozing charm as Monica giggled like a schoolgirl. So Elias pulled out the flash drive labeled Vulture. Inside were hundreds of files, pulled from Kevin's cloud backups and Monica's mirrored messages. But one folder stopped him cold. Personal hidden. That's where he found the jackpot. Old emails from Kevin's ex-wife, divorce settlements, custody threats, and a handful of racy photos Kevin had tried to bury. One of them showed her sprawled out in a black lace set, taken sometime before the divorce. Stamped with the boutique watermark. Lux Desires Photography, Chicago, Illinois. Kevin had tried to scrub the internet of that image. Elias found it in less than a day. The next day, Elias took a long drive along Interstate 90. He knew the stretch near the commuter artery. 8 lanes, thousands of cars each day, and more than a few billboards owned by private companies that didn't ask too many questions. He paid in cash. 3 days later, Kevin Dorsey's secret resurfaced, 15 feet high and 20 feet wide, glowing under halogen lights at exit 47. Kevin Dorsey, still taking advantage of women who trust him? Beneath the headline, the photo, blown up, unfiltered, undeniable. It exploded online by noon. By 6 p.m., Kevin's hospital had issued a statement distancing themselves from private matters involving Dr. Dorsey's past. HR began internal reviews. Someone from the board leaked to the press. Monica called Kevin 6 times that night. Elias watched from the attic feed as Kevin pulled up to their house, red-faced, pacing on the driveway, yelling into his phone. Monica tried to calm him, but Kevin shoved past her, stormed into the house, knocking over a dining chair. For Elias, watching it all from the boiler room was better than a Super Bowl win. But he wasn't done. Caleb Myers was next. Elias had already dug into Caleb's side business. The LLC Monica claimed was just for tax purposes. Turns out Caleb was flipping foreclosed properties through straw buyers, using shellcore to hide his name from government contracts. Sloppy work. He'd even kept old emails from investors detailing the grift. Elias printed everything: contracts, wiring instructions, digital signatures, and dropped them, anonymously, on the desk of a state investigator who owed Theo's cousin a favor. But he wasn't patient enough to wait for red tape. He took it one step further. He rigged Caleb's downtown office with a slow gas leak. A little acetylene in the vent line. Nothing deadly. Just enough to trigger the building's fire suppression and blow out the windows when the scented candle Caleb lit each morning finally kissed the air. At 9:13 a.m., the office went boom. Nobody died, but the fire marshal called it suspicious. And the footage Elias had slipped to the news station showed Caleb carrying armloads of shredders and boxes the night before. It aired on Channel 7 before lunch. Now Caleb wasn't just a sleazy landlord. He was a suspected felon. 2 traitors. 2 implosions. Neither saw it coming. Elias watched it all unfold from the boiler room. Camera feeds glowing, news audio crackling through an old speaker, the smell of machine grease grounding him. There were no cheers, no high fives, no celebration, just quiet, steady breath, and one more name left on the board. Monica. Her turn was coming, and this time it would be personal. The invitation came printed in gold foil. Northwood Memorial Hospital Annual Gala, benefiting children's oncology. Hosted at the Wilshire Ballroom. Dress code, formal. Guest speaker, Dr. Kevin Dorsey. It was exactly the kind of stage Kevin lived for. Spotlights, cameras, wealthy donors in suits and gowns nodding as he told polished stories about his decades of service. Elias figured Kevin would try to use the event to clean up his image, spin the Billboard scandal as a smear job from a vindictive ex. But Elias wasn't going to let that happen. He wasn't just going to burn Kevin's mask. He was going to melt it to his face, live on stage. For 2 weeks, Elias combed through the hard drives again, connecting timelines, stitching audio files from phone calls and recorded conversations. Kevin bragging about siphoning insurance reimbursements. Kevin mocking patients for being too stupid to read discharge forms. Kevin laughing with Monica about how long it'll take the old man to die. Each clip was its own blade, but together, they were a kill shot. Elias bought a tux from a second-hand shop, trimmed his beard, and walked into the Wilshire Ballroom with the confidence of a man who had nothing left to lose and nothing left to hide. The room sparkled with money. Crystal chandeliers, tuxedos, pearl necklaces. Monica sat at a table near the front, dressed in black silk, hair curled like she was a politician's wife. Kevin stood behind the podium, hands folded like a preacher, waiting for the applause to settle. Elias didn't sit. He walked straight to the rear AV booth, flashed a stolen vendor badge, and handed over a flash drive with a calm smile. "Updated sponsor slideshow," he said. The tech kid barely looked at it before plugging it into the system. Kevin began his speech. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. At Northwood Memorial, we believe in second chances for every child, every family." He didn't even get to the word resilience before the projector behind him flickered. Then the video started. At first, the audience thought it was part of the presentation, images of hospital rooms, nurses, doctors. But then came Kevin's voice. "The insurance company doesn't check when we're bill. Just duplicate the code, pad the report, and boom, extra $5,000. Whispers started. "Some of these idiots don't even speak English. They sign whatever I hand them." The room fell silent. "He's too dumb to figure it out. I bet he still thinks she's just working late." Laughter, Monica's laughter. Monica's face dropped. Kevin turned, confused, as his own words kept playing. Confessions, mockery, lies. One by one, people turned away from the stage and stared at him with disgust. A few donors stood up and walked out. One man in a tux muttered, "Jesus Christ," and threw his drink in the trash. Kevin froze. His voice cracked as he tried to speak. That was doctored. I never." Elias watched from the back, arms crossed, jaw tight. No one believed him. Security stepped up to the podium. Hospital administrators whispered urgently behind clipboards. Monica tried to approach Kevin, but someone grabbed her arm and pulled her aside. The whole room fractured into confusion, whispers, and pointed fingers. Kevin was done. By morning, the hospital released a statement of termination. The board announced a full audit. 2 of Kevin's former employees went to the press. The state attorney's office requested an interview. It was over. Elias drove back to the mill, pulled into the rear loading dock, and stepped down from the truck with a calm he hadn't felt in years. He walked into the boiler room, cracked open a warm beer, and sat under the low-hanging lamp. Kevin Dorsey had been stripped bare in front of his entire kingdom. Monica watched it all fall, and Caleb was already halfway to prison. Now it was time to turn the light on her. Monica showed up 2 days later with a grocery bag and a forced smile, like nothing had happened. Elias was home, feet up on the coffee table, ribs still sore, mind razor-sharp. She kissed his cheek like she still owned the right. "I thought I'd cook tonight," she said sweetly. "We've both been through a lot. Maybe we can talk." Elias didn't move. He just looked at her. "What did you tell Kevin at the gala before security dragged him off?" Her smile broke, just a fraction. "I don't know what you think you saw. I saw everything. Heard it too." He reached under the table, pulled out a thick file, and dropped it between them with a dull slap. Inside, printed photos of Kevin entering their house, video stills of Monica laughing in lingerie, bank statements showing the policy change, a copy of the forged deed transfer. She didn't reach for it, just stared. "You forged my signature. You tried to give Caleb our home, changed my life insurance to your boyfriend, then rigged a boiler hoping the payout would make you rich." He stood slowly, each word clipped and steady. "You didn't come to the hospital because you thought it worked." Her lip trembled, not from guilt, from fear. "Elias, save it." She took a step back. "I filed a restraining order. You've got 20 minutes to grab your things and leave. After that, cops are on standby. You don't live here anymore." She opened her mouth to argue, then saw something in his eyes. Not anger, not sadness. Finality. "No lawyer will let you get away with." "I'm not divorcing you," Elias interrupted. "You want to know why?" She blinked, unsure. "Because dead men don't get served papers. And as far as the insurance company's concerned, I died in that explosion. Problem is, I came back, and I've already filed a fraud complaint. Adjusters are involved. State investigators too. You and your brother are looking at prison if you breathe wrong." He took a breath, just one. "You tried to erase me, Monica, but I won't disappear." Behind her, footsteps echoed down the hallway. It was Rowan, their daughter, barely 17, eyes red from crying. "Mom, is it true?" Monica turned, her mask finally cracking. "Sweetie, I was trying to protect us." "Don't." Rowan's voice cracked. "You lied to me, to all of us." She looked at Elias. "I'm staying with Dad." Monica's shoulders collapsed like someone had pulled a pin from her spine. She left without another word. No screaming, no apology, no fight, just silence and the front door clicking shut. Elias sat down again, hands trembling just slightly as he picked up the remote and shut off the porch camera feed. He wasn't a widower, but he'd buried something just the same. And what came next was justice. Elias waited until the dust fully settled, until Kevin's name was buried under headlines. Monica's accounts were frozen, and Caleb had officially been indicted. Then he made his final stop. Kevin Dorsey now lived in a cramped, half-furnished condo above a failing juice bar, 20 miles from the city. Gone were the custom suits, Rolex, and Audi. The new Kevin looked like a man halfway through a free fall with no net in sight. Elias stood at the front door with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a quiet smile under his beard. Kevin opened the door and immediately tried to slam it shut. Elias stopped it with one hand. "Relax. I'm not here to kill you." His voice was steady, even warm. "I just want to talk." Kevin stepped back, pale, twitchy. "You want money? There's nothing left. My accounts are frozen. My lawyers dropped me." "I don't want your money," Elias said, walking past him into the cluttered living room. "I want your voice." From the bag, Elias pulled out a small recorder and set it on the coffee table. Then, almost casually, he pulled out a black and white printed form, a sworn affidavit. Kevin's name is already typed across the top. Kevin stared at it like it might explode. What the hell is this? Insurance fraud, attempted homicide, forgery, conspiracy. With a full confession, you get a chance to disappear without handcuffs. Don't sign it, and I will make sure your face is plastered all over the State Bar Review, medical boards, and 2 national news shows that owe me favors. Kevin scoffed weakly, but his hands trembled. You think I'm afraid of jail? No, Elias said, leaning in. I think you're afraid of being seen, really seen. Not as the guy who gives speeches in tuxedos, but as the coward who needed a woman to do his dirty work, then ran when it all fell apart. Kevin's face contorted. She said you were nothing but a pipe monkey. She said you didn't even know how to open your own mail. Elias chuckled. She said a lot of things. Now she's gone. Caleb's going to prison. And you? You're next. Kevin stared at the affidavit, his jaw clenched. You want me to confess? On record. I already have the footage, Elias replied. This is mercy. A chance for you to take the deal and vanish. I'll even toss your name off the blacklist if you swear to keep walking. I never want to see your face again. If I do, I won't call a lawyer next time. Kevin hesitated, then reached for the pen. He signed. Now say it, Elias said, clicking the recorder. Say it out loud. Kevin swallowed. I, Kevin Dorsey, conspired with Monica Grant and Caleb Myers to change Elias Grant's life insurance beneficiary. I knew about the forged deed. I knew about the boiler plan. I was involved. Elias let the words hang in the air. That's when Kevin, in a last flicker of defiance, lunged for the kitchen drawer. He pulled a knife and rushed forward, wild-eyed and clumsy. Elias stepped back once, sidestepped, then drove his elbow into Kevin's face like he was slamming a valve shut. Kevin collapsed to the floor, nose bleeding, groaning. Elias knelt beside him, picked up the knife, and dropped it in the sink without a word. Now you really are finished. He grabbed the recorder, the affidavit, and walked to the door. Kevin didn't follow. Before leaving, Elias turned and looked back at the man now sprawled on the cheap tile. You had money, a career, and the nerve to come into my house, sleep in my bed, try to end my life. He paused. You didn't just fail. You failed loudly. Then he left Kevin there, bleeding, humiliated, broken, and never looked back. 6 months later, the boiler room didn't feel like a war room anymore. It felt like a forge, quiet, scarred, solid. Elias sat on a metal stool sipping his morning coffee from the same dented thermos he'd used for years. Theo leaned against the rusted tank beside him, chewing on sunflower seeds, watching the dust drift in the sunlight. Place doesn't smell like death anymore, Theo said, spitting a shell into a coffee can. Never did, Elias replied. Just smelled like the truth. The board was still up on the far wall, though it was cleaner now. Monica's photo was gone. So was Kevin's. Caleb's face was still pinned there, under a newspaper clipping. Real estate scammer faces federal charges. Elias had thought about taking it down, but it served as a reminder. Monica had disappeared not long after the restraining order hit. Rumor had it she skipped town using a cousin's maiden name. Caleb was awaiting trial, his lawyer arguing for a deal, but the evidence was ironclad. And Kevin? Last anyone heard, he was living off disability payments in Arizona, too paranoid to show his face in public. Elias hadn't spoken to any of them since. Didn't need to. Justice had a way of echoing louder in the silence. What now? Theo asked. Elias took a long sip. Now? I'm going back to work. Back to the mill? Back to the furnace, Elias said. I've got old machines begging for a second chance. Theo raised an eyebrow. After all that, you just return to the grind? Elias set the thermos down. Not the grind, the fire. I spent years keeping the system running. Now I know how to rebuild one. Theo nodded, then looked toward the exit. You're different now, man. I'm the same, Elias said. Just harder, cleaner. I don't mistake silence for peace anymore, or kindness for weakness. He stood and grabbed his flannel from the hook. Outside, the sun was rising over the factory roofline, the smokestacks dormant but proud. Rowan had been doing better. She'd picked up a part-time job and started taking night classes. She still lived with him, and for the first time in years, they talked without the static. Just father and daughter, no shadows in between. He'd rebuilt the living room. New walls, new floors, new locks, but most importantly, new rules. No more blind trust, no more passive silence, no more assuming someone's love meant loyalty. The Elias who'd been forged in that boiler room didn't burn fast or loud. He burned steadily, low, relentless. He'd been betrayed, nearly killed, stripped of his home, his wife, his safety, and he'd come back sharper than steel. At the door, Theo clapped him on the back. "You ever need a partner in that forge of yours?" Elias smirked. "I'll save you a seat by the fire." They walked out together into the morning, boots crunching on gravel, breath rising in the cold. The war was over, the wreckage cleared, and the man they thought they could break was just getting started.